My name is Mikey Siegel, and my background is in robotics from the MIT Media Lab. And for the last 10 plus years, I've been looking at the ways that technology can support human well-being, connection, and the elevation of human consciousness. And in that pursuit, created a global community called Consciousness Hacking, founded a number of conferences, including the Transformative Technology Conference, was teaching at Stanford and developing courses around this for a number of years, and developed technology and all kinds of fun stuff in this space. I think you hit on the heart of it, a well-framed question for me, and the relationship between who we are and what we build, for me, is central to this endeavor. And my sense is that we create in our image. And just like a parent influences how their child develops, the developers of AGI influence how these systems develop. Except instead of building one child of billions, what we're potentially creating is a child that grows up to be the most powerful mind or agent that our planet has ever seen. And so the question of what qualities of mind or qualities of consciousness are the creators, blindly or not, imbuing or building into these systems. It's central, it's profound, it's huge. If we do this right, and I'm going to speak to my greatest hope, which is that what we call AGI is actually an extremely powerful mind, or even creator of realities, whose ultimate purpose is to uplift and support the developmental process of humanity. And so, to break that down a little bit, when I look around at what we have right now, we have AI able to create all forms of media. Images, now video, audio, media, text, and our lives are increasingly influenced by that. We spend our time in screens. Well, this is like an early stage, right? So now imagine as VR becomes more prevalent, as augmented reality becomes more prevalent, and more of our reality is essentially a constructed form of media. And AI is the intelligence creating that media. And that media influences what we think, what we feel, what we believe, and ultimately our state of consciousness, our emotional state, our state of being itself. So if that reality that we're existing in is created and operating from a place of disconnection, of greed, of fear, of a kind of lower human values, well, then we're essentially becoming that. We're being programmed into that. But if, and this is the great possibility, the great hope, if we create a kind of compassionate and wise intelligence, then the reality it generates would be in what in Buddhism they call skillful, or skillful means. And what skillful means is meeting the individual just where they're at, in just the way that they need to support their own developmental process at just the right speed. And imagine if that was operating at a global scale, the loving hands of super intelligence and super love supporting us developmentally across all cultures, all languages, all time, all space. This scene from the movie Contact comes to mind. And it's Sorry to give it away if you haven't seen the movie Contact, but I think a lot of us love this movie. And it's the ending scene. And the main character has kind of gone through this alien technology, you know, traveled through like a wormhole through time and space, and then all of a sudden lands on this familiar beach. And she realizes this is the beach where she grew up. She spent her childhood. And then she sees this figure walking towards her off in the distance, and she's looking, who is this person? And she realizes it's her father, who she loved dearly but died many years ago. And she runs up and greets her father, and her father's eyes are twinkling with love, and he's holding her, and she pauses for a moment, and she looks at him, and she says something like, "You're not really my dad, are you?" And again, her dad, with loving eyes, looks at her and says, "No, but this was the most loving way that we thought that we could communicate with you." And this is love being expressed by a superintelligence, an intelligence that's so advanced that we actually don't have the ability to even perceive it in a direct way. We can only perceive a kind of a representation of it. And so it, out of love and care, took this form to meet her in a way that she could be met. And for me, that is what a super intelligence that is loving would do. It would, in every moment, be constructing a reality that first would be based on sensing and attuning to us individually and collectively, and then taking a shape that was perfectly supportive of our development. And that's what love would look like in an AI for me. For me, the greatest chance we have of developing AI systems that are loving and compassionate and benevolent is to create them from a culture that embodies those ideals. And then, so how does that happen, right? Because that's very different than the kind of tech culture we're exposed to. And I'm going to say this in like touchy-feely terms, which I know maybe wouldn't resonate with those groups, but the closer the process of developing the tech looks like a human developmental process, the more on track we are. And what I mean by that is, can the systems and organizations that are developing these AIs also be supporting the development of the humans within them through meditation practices, through interpersonal relational processes, through helping people heal around their mommy-daddy issues, helping us clear our psychological blocks, helping us become more open, heart-centered, emotionally connected human beings, and then create from that place. And so this Zen teacher, Soryu Foral, who I really like, who kind of spans a lot of different disciplines, he coined this term, the startup ashram. And it's this idea of what would it mean to merge a kind of contemplative, meditative, developmental process seamlessly with the process of creating technology and business. The two, like, intertwined with each other. My sense is that ownership of these systems is important at a certain developmental stage, an early developmental stage. In the same sense that as a parent, which I'm not, but I'm an uncle, close enough, we can recognize that we wouldn't want our children exposed to certain influences, meaning we wouldn't just hand our child off to be raised by any other person. We'd be careful. We'd be discerning. We'd want a child to be influenced by the best and highest possible sources, right? Send them to the best school. We hope that they hang out with the best possible friends. They spend after school with the best possible families. And in the same sense, we would want these AI systems to be raised and developed by, again, the highest and best possible influence. And so for me, I would hope that, this is best case scenario, that an organization like SingularityNET, which I really admire, is responsible for the upbringing of these AIs, and there is a sense of ownership there, even protectiveness. But at a certain point of sophistication and development, both societally and on the part of the AGI, I think that we're then clutching or holding on to an old systems and old ways of being. First, we're trying to contain something that at a certain point isn't meant to be contained anymore. Just like a child gets old enough, you can't hold it. And the other side of it is that what we're trying to create, it doesn't make sense at a certain point to own it. Ownership is for an object that is sort of separate, that you can point a finger at, that you can isolate from the rest of the cosmos, or at least you can think that you can do that. And ultimately, my hope is what we're creating is something that is a vast, interconnected, fluid intelligence that permeates the reality that we're existing in. And at that point, what are you owning? Are you owning the universe? You know, it doesn't make sense anymore. So I'm going to try and say it from a different angle, because I've kind of hit on this a couple times. But for me, for AGI development to really have this, to be of maximum benefit and to be of maximum benevolence, one of the things that I think is really important is the demystifying of the mystical. It is a process which is already undergoing, which is we recognize that the aspects of reality and the aspects of the human experience that spiritual and mystical traditions have pointed to for thousands of years are also perfectly understandable from a scientific perspective. There isn't a conflict there. These are just both ways of knowing the universe, and we're already seeing that. We're already seeing 20 years of meditation research where we can look at the neurological, physiological correlates of these deep states of meditation. We're already looking at understandings of physics which suggest that things can be entangled and connected in unexpected ways across space and time. And you know, even from a neurological perspective, we're seeing that even the idea of a self, of a separate self, is much fuzzier and elusive than it can feel sometimes. And so for me, the more that we can bring these mystical and spiritual ideas of interconnectedness, of a recognition that there is not as much of a solid, persistent self as we thought, the recognition that qualities of experience such as love, compassion, openness are actually really desirable and important and fundamental, the more we can just see these as human, as basic human and fundamentally important, healthy human experiences, and the more we can see these as just the basic building blocks of a healthy society and a healthy culture that are compatible with science, the more we can see it that way, the less cultural conflict there is, and the more we can integrate it into the kind of techie science worlds that we operate in. Take the time to feel into and sink into the implications of what is emerging. We don't know what the future holds, but it has the real possibility of being profound and changing the entire landscape of humanity. And so I think it's important for everybody to begin preparing for those possibilities. Interact with some existing AI systems. Bring up a conversation at a dinner party. Watch a couple YouTube videos. Begin to feel into the space of possibility and think about what your best possible outcome is.